the final 10. First of all, thank you for putting up with that. These are the final 10 games in our top 100 games of all time. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
It got more painful to listen to the longer we went.
This is Devon from Devon Talks Tabletop, and we
Shout out to Devon.
We are going through our
it.
top 10 games of all time. These are numbers 10 through 1, the very nation. This is the list you've been waiting for. There's about 30,000 of you that haven't bothered to watch the last 9 videos in the series. First of all, shame on you. You're going to miss most of the inside jokes of this video. Don't go away. Don't go away. It's still worth it. It's still funny. It's still funny. We're all good. We're going to go ahead.
Please don't go. Please don't go.
Please don't go.
Please stay.
Watch us.
Guys, I know that this might shock you, but they could technically pause, open up a new tab, and not go.
My point
and still
is
go
that
at the same
people
time.
who don't. I don't want to. I want people to watch the other 9 videos, but I don't want them to think that if they didn't, there's no point watching this one.
Fair.
Guys, this is the top tier 1 through 10. You do not want to miss it. If you pick up any of these games, if you go to play them, you better hope they're in print. You better hope they're not just prototypes.
Sorry.
We'll see what happens.
Or out of print.
I said out of print first.
Yeah.
You're behind here, bud.
Sorry.
You're slow.
Glad to know you're listening when I talk.
We're going to start this off with a number 10 game. We currently, if you watched the last series, I predicted...
This list is fire.
Meg predicted that there will be 4
Four,
crossovers between her list and my list in this video.
And there are 2 that I think could be ranked the same.
I guess that we have 2 more direct rankings on any of us combined, and Devon's pretty sure there's only 1 crossover with me and 1 crossover with Meg. Those
And
are
I don't think they're direct at all.
Devin has one on his list that should be on my list,
It
but
is.
it's breaking the rules.
And that's basically where we're at with this one. So, we basically have our predictions locked in. We're set. We're all going to be wrong, probably in different ways.
We're all going to be wrong.
And starting off the bat with my number 10, which is a game that both of you have on your You Want Me to Teach You list.
Rurik, Dawn of Kiev.
Rurik, Dawn of Kiev is my
Boom.
number 10 game
Hurt
of all
my
time.
hand.
This happens a lot. My
I
number
guess
10...
I'm having with this one.
My number 10 game of all time is Rurik Dawn of Kiev from Peacekeeper Games, designed by Stan Kadunsky. It narrowly pushed out Vindication. In general, I said this in the last video, but these last 10, I've been doing a lot of adjustments as far as where they fall, manual massaging, as far as
He
where they
changed
fall.
his list between yesterday and today.
Multiple times, different things. That 10-11 swap between Vindication and Rurik happened yesterday, right before the video.
Yeah.
I've been constantly adjusting exactly. They're so close, they're so amazing. But Rurik Dawn of Kiev, every single time I play it, I'm like, it should be in the top, 3 games of all time. So, number 10 is where we'll put it for right now. But, because I haven't played it in, 6 months. But every time I play it, I'm like, this is going to be top 3. It's very, very, very good. It is an area control game in which is not scoring a lot of points. You're trying to vie for a few different areas of how you're going to score points in the game. But the main thing that compels me is this action planning kind of sequence to it. Every round is 4 rounds, and every round you're going to be placing basically these advisors down in these different areas to try to choose which actions you're taking. I want to be fighting, I want to be moving, I want to be doing this. And the problem is the higher numbers get you better, more efficient actions, but the lower numbers go first. So you're constantly trying to plan around what's going to happen, and the problem is you can push me down. I can take that 2 attack action with my 5, which is with my 1, which means I go first. But then if you put your 5 there, you're going to have the more likely chance of getting that action because you're going to push me down, but you're going last. So there's a constant trade-off to try and think how people are going to screw with your action selection.
Man, that sounds
and then
so good.
To figure out how you're going to make sure that you choose things that work for you while knowing you're going to be screwed over the entire time by the other players. It is a delightful experience. The expansion only improves the experience, giving you variable buildings and a whole bunch of other small modules you can throw in. I love Rurik Dawn of Kiev. It is an amazing, amazing game.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
It's awesome. We'll play it.
Devin, what's your number 10?
My number 10 was decently close to a crossover with Alex. Not immediately close in terms of a direct crossover, but it is Mind Management.
That's so close. That was close.
Yeah.
Mine
You
was
were
11 or 12?
No, 13,
13?
14 maybe?
It was 14.
So, yeah.
The 14.
14.
14.
14.
Mind Management
Actually, if you're correctly,
is
14 was 14.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Mind Management is a adaptation of a graphic novel that is done by Matt Kent, and it is a fabulous translation of the graphic novels. I'm halfway through, or 2/3 of the way through, the second of 3 omnibuses right now, so I've been reading through it, and it really does give me a lot of context for why the decision space or the design choices were for all those different characters and their relationships to each other in the in the game.
Coffee?
Monks, dogs, and coffee. Monks, dogs, and coffee. It's so good. To me, it's the best hidden movement game I've played. It can play really quickly. It can scale up and change and evolve to match the people. If you're playing with the same group again and again and again, whichever side is losing the game is going to get empowered by the shift system, and it's going to add more rules, more people, more components, and things that you have to decide upon and choose when you're starting. It's such a clever design, and I mean, it never ceases to be an enjoyable time. And I think it is probably one of the best balanced in terms of the odds of both the agent who is trying to stay hidden and then the rogue agents who are trying to catch the mind management recruiter. So it really does kind of seesaw between those two sides really well. I love mind management. It's awesome. Jay Cormier did a killer job.
Absolutely fantastic. That's a game, I mean, yeah, the top 10 of all time completely makes sense to me. I put a high last year. I don't remember where, but I remember it was number 30 or something like that. And that's my, I just played it.
Yeah.
And then bumped to 14. It's consistently grown for me.
So good. Mind management, number 10.
I think it's very clever balancing with revealing when you made the movements or when you picked up certain things, the spacing out of when you reveal versus when you just take movements and don't say what you did.
Yeah.
Figuring stuff like that out, how do people make games?
It's good. Really good.
So good.
My
What's
number
your
10
number 10?
is an oldie but a goodie. Unfortunately, I'm no longer wearing the shirt.
Sentinels of the Multiverse.
They don't know.
I know.
Sentinels of the Multiverse. So this is, I believe, the first title by Greater Than Games. They went on to make Spirit Island. And it is a delightful game that is, to me, very directly related to Marvel Champions. So everyone has their own hero. You're playing through a deck. You're also you have an environment that you're playing in, and you're fighting against a villain together. And it's co-op. The biggest difference is that it's all preset decks, so you don't have to build your deck. It's you decide to play a certain character. You're playing their deck. It's very thematic to that character. And then the thing that's very special about it is they created the whole IP based on all of these superheroes that they made up. That it's not something like Marvel where it's based on an existing thing. They made up an entire world, and every hero feels very unique. As they came out with expansions, they all do very different things. It's always a great time. It's very challenging. And then eventually they came out with Vengeance, where instead of playing against one villain, you're playing against a villain in between everyone's turn. And every time they've done anything like that, expansions, it just always works well. That it's just a beautifully done game for especially how old it is. It was one of my first board games.
Nice.
Love it.
I really want to try it. You guys have
So
talked
great.
a lot about it.
I like it. It's one of my first games as well. We talked about this in a different video, but I really want to start trying the definitive edition to try to see where it is again for me. I had it for years. I got everything for a long time. Eventually, I think I got out of it right before Vengeance, actually. But I had a lot of the expansions, a lot of the content. It's a really, really well-done system.
And obviously, because it's been ranked as such, I prefer it more than Marvel Champions. If I was going to play an LCG, I would play Arkham Horror. And with this, I do like the preset decks already, where you don't have to do the building and things like that. I just think they work really well, that you don't need to change them.
Nice.
My number 9 is, I don't know if either of you have played this. I don't remember. But my number 9 is one of a series of 3 games from, 4 games now, from Matago, and it's Cyclades. Cyclades, you haven't played it? You played it?
No, I haven't played any of these.
This one I've asked you.
I haven't played Cyclades, Inish, or Commit.
You haven't played any?
No, but I have one of them's over there.
Yeah, it
Maybe
is.
that's
Right
it.
there.
We'll see. Cyclades is one of the ones that has held up for me for so long. I believe it's the first game in the quadrilogy now. There's Cyclades, then we had Kemet, then we had Inish, and then the most recent one that was on Kickstarter, hasn't delivered yet, is Yucatan. And I love Cyclades. I think that the way the game works is a combination of area control. You have this whole area control system going on, but the real core engine of the game to me is the bidding system. Because every round you're bidding on a god's favor, and the god's favor establishes what you can do. So you might want to attack me, but unless you win Ares' favor, you can't.
Want to attack.
You do. It happens a lot. And you might want to start placing your ships, because in order to attack me, you actually have to be able to transfer from island to island, but you can't do that unless you win... Who's the nautical god?
Poseidon.
Poseidon, thank you. Unless you win Poseidon's favor.
Ivan, you hit the table. Okay.
Poseidon. And so you have this system where you're trying to set up what you're going to do, but it doesn't matter if you don't have your economy in place because you're bidding on these gods. If you don't have your economy in place, you don't choose the right gods and time it over. And one of the best parts of the game that really has a degree of Scrooge, which is so satisfying, is if I outbid you on a god's track, you can't outbid me until you go to a different track first. You have to get out. You have to go to a different track, bid there, then get outbid there to come back. And so there's this timing system of trying to figure out how much does Devon want Ares. Well, I'm going to try to push you out right after you locked in your 7 bid. Good. well, I'm going to lock you out now. And now you have to go to a different track and figure out what's going to happen. You can get outbid on the other track. So there's a constant degree of screwage, a constant degree of manipulation that all ultimately devolves to an area control game of timing. The entire game comes down to the timing and then trying to lock in the gods. I've seen people on the cusp of victory unable to get the god that they needed to win to actually get the metropolises you need to take over. Multiple times, yes.
I've seen people. Me.
He's like, I wrote about it in my diary.
Other people too, but yes. It is a lovely experience. I adore the game. I do have some small complaints about the end game. I think it's sometimes it can end up with a player winning just by kind of sneaking in the win. But that usually you can try to plan well around it, and it's the number 9 game of all time.
And you're back to back. Your top 10 is like, why have I not played these games?
These are all going to be that. I am passionate about every single one of these games.
Man.
Yeah.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is going to be the first crossover of this video, but not. Well, I'm preemptively guessing it will be a crossover in this video, but not a direct crossover since Alex has already said his number 9, and this is one of the ones I predicted we would not rank the same.
Oh.
Terraforming Mars?
Terraforming Mars. Yep.
I was right last night.
Terraforming Mars.
Son of a gun.
Terraforming Mars is such a delight. It's such a fun puzzle of trying to figure out one or two tracks that you will kind of want to start paying into, and then just trying to go with it and build your engine. I find that it's different every single time I play. Sometimes I play into like the tags and having the animals and things like that, but usually I try to go straight for greenery and for as much money as possible, and that almost always does the trick. It's really great with the achievements and the awards.
Yep.
I just love that system. I love with the achievements. So you get different achievements. I mean, everyone knows Terraforming Mars, right?
Of course.
Did I explain this?
Unless they played Ark Nova.
But one of my favorite things is there are the different achievements, and you may have 2 of them. But if you look around the table and everyone else only has 1, you take that one first, and then you can get the other one later. And it's a very fun puzzle of trying to get there first before anyone else can. And I just find like the way the game ramps with the different plays I've had, it's always different, but it's a really fun like flow puzzle.
Have you done
Really
it with
enjoyable.
Prelude and drafting?
I haven't. I haven't. So
Prelude.
we've talked about this.
Prelude so I've only played it with.
this.
I know. I forget sometimes.
I forget sometimes. I've only played it with Prelude, and I would not want to play without that.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I've done the drafting.
And I played it a lot. And then after that, I won too many times and we had to stop.
Do I have it?
Physical copy of Terraforming Mars?
No.
Okay. Well, it doesn't help us right now.
We don't have enough time for all the games we've talked about.
Yeah.
We'll still try. I'll talk about it more later, maybe.
Yeah. We'll get there.
What's your number 9?
My number 9. I did my number 9. It's Cyclades. What's your number 8?
Yeah.
What? My number 9.
What's your number? You did 9 too, didn't you?
I haven't done 9.
9. Do
I
you
just
9?
talked about my management.
9.
My 9 is one that has soared up here with the arrival, for not everybody, of 3 different expansions. And it is...
Endless Winter.
Moonrakers.
So... You did Endless Winter already.
Yeah, I already did. You and I actually had a direct crossover.
Yeah.
So, good remembering. Moonrakers is... I am on the side of people who don't have complaints about Moonrakers base. I think Moonrakers at its base level is a great game. I don't have issues with it. I think that if you are playing social negotiation games with people who don't do well with social negotiation games, that's not the fault of the game. That's the fault of the party composition that you brought to the game. So I don't have an issue with that. I really enjoy it, and I really don't see a problem with a game where where there's this like threshold that you reach where you're like, I am not a threat to everybody, so people will still bring me on contracts and I can get maximum benefit out of being cooperative. And now I'm at the point where I've built up my engine by myself and people think I'm enough of a threat, I need to go alone. I don't mind that there's that kind of like reversal of mentality between cooperation and then soloism. I don't like, that doesn't bother me at all, and neither does the social negotiation element. However, all of that to say, the arrival of all 3 of those expansions, Binding Ties, Overload, Nomad, make this such a consistent hard hitter for me. I brought this to Thanksgiving along with a bunch of other games, and we played this twice with 2 expansions every time, Binding Ties and Overload. I didn't introduce them to Nomad because I thought it would be a little bit dicey to force them into the decision space of the spatial elements that are there. But I cannot wait till my Titan Pledge comes in. My cousin and brother loved it so much, I gave them my original copy with those expansions that were solo, and I can't wait for the big box. It's such a fun time. Overload gives you a ridiculously new value to focus on with all of the upgraded cards, and then Binding Ties gives you even more incentive if you didn't have it already to work with other people, and then more subtle ways than you think of actually to cash in on your reputation markers to help you out. And then the Nomad gives an additional element of a physical board space that you have to interact on, and my favorite thing, an anomaly spot with some really crazy ship parts. So Moonrakers together, but Moonrakers also with expansions is such a good game.
And I agree with you completely. I've commented that I'm not counting my rating of it with expansions because they haven't arrived yet. That's the way I'm doing my list. But Moonrakers is excellent. Moonrakers is, to me, I had complaints about the original, but the expansions very much addressed most of them, and I particularly like it solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not tried Luminor, and I am so excited to try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really want to try the co-op
It's good.
version.
Luminor as well, yeah.
What's your number 8, Meg?
My number 8 is going to be another one where I think I'm sniping a game out from someone else before they get to say it. But now I'm taking it from Devon.
I know.
It's going to be a great deck building
Dune
game.
Imperium.
Dune Imperium. Oh, baby, do I love Dune Imperium. Whew, the deck building in that game is so much fun. I want to say out of everything in the game, like there's a combat system, there's a power play system, you have like asymmetric player powers. All of it's fine. The deck building is so good and so fun and satisfying that's what makes the game for me. As someone who loves deck building, I love Ascension, things like that. This took that, and I've played a lot of deck building games that try to do worker placement and things like that, and this one just does it in such a satisfying way. I want to play it all the time. I want to play it all the time. I've taught this one at my local game store. I've done this so much. I love Dune Imperium.
You know, when we met at Gamma this year, I was teaching. I think it was the day I was teaching Dune Imperium to kids playing or to play the game. I was teaching it to Allison and Daniel, and I think I think Mark from Board Game Coffee. And I actually stepped away from it to say hey to you and chat for a while. But I was teaching Dune Imperium.
I didn't know you were playing that. Yeah.
She's like, I noticed that. I never.
She's like, I would have never spoke to you. I would have just been playing games. But Dune Imperium's so good.
So good.
Dune Imperium's
it's
fantastic.
such a delight.
We'll hear more.
The expansions make it better. We haven't played the newest expansion, but Rise of Ix makes it great.
After this,
yes,
actually, possibly, we have it here for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have physically have it here.
Yes, we have it here.
Yeah,
in general.
Here.
But yeah,
after this,
solid. It's a great game.
Yeah, that's my number 8.
That's your number 8. What's your number 8?
I should probably check that. My number 8.
I should probably check that.
Is
I can do mine if I need to.
My number 8 is actually a reasonable drop from last year. Reasonable at this point is like anything could be reasonable, but it's like I think number 4 maybe last year, and it went to number 8. Blood. Kevin went to like 8.
Blood Rage dropped 4.
Blood Rage dropped 4 spots for me, which again, top 10 of all time. We're still doing fine here. There's a lot of games, that I love. Blood Rage still holds up. It still holds up, but it has gotten a bit repetitive just due to how much I actually play the game. Blood Rage is Area Control from Eric Lang from Command Games. I believe the art by Adrian Smith as well. It's part of the trilogy of Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and
the other one.
The other one. Ankh, thank you. I'm blanking on names today. But it's part of that trilogy over there, and to me it's still the best of the trilogy. Blood Rage is drafting and area control across 3 rounds, and the drafting you're doing is drafting powers and abilities and cards and quests and all these things you're trying to do to actually affect the battle and play. You're constantly trying to be mindful of what quests will help you raise your stats, and stats are good for you in the game. They're going to help you have more rage, they're going to help you have more points whenever you win a battle, more units on the board. But also that cool monster is amazing, but so is that ability over there that's going to make your units worth 2, and you'll have to get them on the board at the same time a little faster, and everything in the game is just powerful and incredible, and you're constantly doing that thing that I love in drafting where you look at a hand of cards and you're like, not only do I want 4 of these cards, I'm about to pass you the 3 I don't take. And you're just, that's the noise we make when we play Blood Rage. That
internal rage
of wanting everything.
And ecstasy.
and taking the things you want, and then learning how to draft the right combination of stuff that will help you, learning how to be the Loki strategy, fight the Loki strategy, to try to get extra points on quests, to do whatever it is you need to do, and to ultimately make sure you win the right battles at the right time. Blood Rage is absolutely fantastic. It has held up to a lot of plays in my collection. I don't even know if I've done... I think I've played most of the new stuff, but it's just more cards and stuff from the newest Blood Rage Digital. I played with most of them mixed in, but overall, I'm excited about this one, and I love Blood Rage. It holds up. It is my favorite of the trilogy.
Is the kind of maybe slow onset of weariness or repetition that you're talking about...
Down to 8.
Is it...
Just to be clear.
But does it include... like the Asgard expansion and all that other stuff, or is it more like you're playing it a lot more base and you're not getting into the extras a lot?
No, I think it's just that I've played it enough times.
Gotcha.
And the extras kind of just get shuffled in, so you still see a lot of the base content.
Okay.
I usually
You're cooling
try
down on it?
to 8. To 8.
He's like, guys,
It's
don't
fine.
put words in my mouth.
No, I am cooling to 8. The 8th
Yeah.
highest game in my collection of all time. Down from 4. It's garbage now.
It's garbage now. Number 8 for me is Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
Ooh.
This is a game that on average I may play once a year or once
If that
every
much.
2 years. And I do not care. It will take up a whole Kallax spot on its own with the Prophecy of Kings expansion. I do not care. Twilight Imperium for me is one of the few games that truly have like a story around the day when you play. And so like that one Cthulhu Death May Die game that we had, to me that escalates to pretty much the same level I'm talking about, where like that is a core gaming memory of like a lot of fun. And Twilight
Only 2 hours too.
Oh yeah, but you can't say that until you've played Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
We'll get to it.
You can't say it. But it is truly like when you have like, even if you lose, when you have a strategy that you're weaving over the course of like 6 hours, and even longer if you stop to like, stand up from the chair and stuff like that and eat food. But it's so like tied to your memories of the experience and of the game, and for win or for lose. I mean, I have such good memories of this game. Like close victories, just near defeats, like all of that stuff is... I love Twilight Imperium so much. I have not played with Prophecy of Kings expansion. I played 3rd edition and 4th edition, and I love both of them. And I haven't played this game in I think like 2 years. Like, thank you to, maybe pre-pandemic, early days in Fort Worth. I can't remember. It's been a while. And we were going to try and play at PAX, and it just didn't work out. But... Twilight Imperium is such a good game. I can't get over how good that game is.
It's a solid game. I mean, I don't know.
It's solid.
It's a well-loved game. I've never played Twilight.
Yeah.
Twilight
It's a
Imperium.
big box.
It's a big box. That counts.
That's my number 8.
What's your number 7, Devon?
My number 7 is one that I don't think you guys
I did that on
would
purpose.
guess, no matter what. If I gave you a lot of time to just randomly name out titles, I don't think you would guess it. But it is one that has consistently been so good. It to me has had an unfair existence in the board game space, but I adore it so much, and I think it deserves all of the attention it should get, and it is Dwellings of Eldervale. Dwellings of Eldervale is such a good game. I think that it is immensely clever. I think it is Luke Laurie's best design to date that I have experienced.
Have you played Andromeda?
I have played Andromeda's Edge. Dwellings has just got a special place in my heart. Like I over time, the more I play it, maybe Andromeda's Edge will edge it out. But for me, Dwellings of Eldervale is just so good.
Well,
it's
like
so good.
8 or 10 or 12 different factions to choose from, right? There's
It's
like
16.
So many. 16.
There's 8 trays, and each of them are double-sided. They all have 2 of the like 3 or of the 4 or so unique like unit types that they have their own special thing on for that faction. You have different elements, but you're only going to use a certain amount of them dependent on the player count. And then you have these action cards. It's got tableau building. It's got like track bumping up with the elemental set. It's got worker placement. It's so good. It is just this beautiful blend of Euro and Ameritrash. To me, it is maybe the best example of hybrid. Like, it is so well set in the middle of like people's expectations for certain types of games. And I know that like there are probably a lot of Euro people out there who maybe haven't played it that would look at it and be like, I don't know what you're even talking about. That's not the case. It really does have like a massive Ameritrash like facade to it, and I don't mean facade in a bad way. It's just like that's kind of like what you see going in, but there are so many design constraints and like elements to it that when you get in are so well like controlled and fine-tuned. Dwellings of Eldervale is amazing, and it hurts me how few people have it. Like, it's so hard to get a hold of.
It had a Kickstarter release. It didn't really have a retail, like, wide availability.
Yeah, but even the Kickstarter, like, coming back to Kickstarter has been a difficulty, a struggle, which it really shouldn't be with how good it is. Yeah.
That one I actually got bumped out of my list only because I haven't played it enough recently, but I was like, I really, really loved it when I played it, but I haven't tabled it again.
It's also incredibly good solo as well. Like, really good solo mode. So, yeah. Dwellings of Eldervale, number 7 for me.
My 7 is, I believe, the one crossover I have with Devon, which is a game called...
Crokinole!
Hit the table.
Crokinole!
I'm not hitting the table for Crokinole.
She's like, I'll take the L. A Crokinole is my number 7 game of all time, specifically at 4 players. At 2 players, I think it's awesome, but it'd be much, much higher up my top 100. Crokinole is Tracy boards. This is not, they didn't make Crokinole, but they make Crokinole boards.
They make the best.
They make the best Crokinole boards from the ones I've played, at least.
Love you, Jeremy.
How old is Crokinole?
1867 or 1876 or something?
Invented in Canada.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the first recorded instance of a Crokinole
In Canada.
board. Yes. We got one thing right. But
that
anyways.
makes sense because it reminds me of like hockey a little bit with the things sliding.
Shuffleboard.
Yeah.
But Crokinole is a fantastic experience. It's basically just flicking discs into a center hole. But the intricacies of the experience is that you're trying to flick this in the center hole. You're trying to knock other people's discs off. There's a lot of math in the game. There's a lot of ricocheting. There's a lot of strategy as far as who's currently winning, who has the last shot, what you're trying to do in the experience. And the design of the boards and the quality of the components and the experience you have just ultimately flicking discs at each other is one of the most zen-like experiences I get into in board games.
Good.
The idea of sitting down with 4 players, including myself, 4 total people, around a Crokinole board, teams up, you have teams,
1876.
Yeah.
When you say 4 players, I think they know you mean
I'm
yourself.
just making sure, sitting down, because I said sitting down with 4 players. So that's a little, either way, sitting down, team-based experience, at 4 players, just going back and forth as far as the zen-like mode of just another one.
DJ Khaled!
You constantly get into that mode. You're just
that's not where you were going?
No, not where I was going.
It was.
But you kind of go to the point where you're like, okay, great. It's like, it's 11 o'clock at night. We'll just play Crokinole for the last hour. And at 3 in the morning, you're still there just playing another game. It is such a satisfying experience. I love Crokinole. Again, specifically at 4. 2 is very, very, very good. I don't get the same social, zen, tactical strategy. I get much less out of it at 2. And I love it as a 4-player experience.
I do feel so satisfied with the fact that last year it wasn't on your list, and now it's number 7.
Last year it was, because I didn't have it on my list. I had it anytime in my collection of board games. It was off to the side, and I forgot it existed.
Yeah.
So I kind of, at the end of my list, I was like, it should have been in my top 100. Don't know where, but it should have definitely been here. And it's my number 7. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I think it has grown on me since last year. So I don't think it would have been 7 last year. But it would have been high. It would have definitely been high. What's your number 7, Meg?
My number 7 is a campaign game. It is a delightful campaign game with huge amounts of replayability. It was one that took me by surprise that I thought I was going to love it, or I thought I was going to like it, and then I ended up loving it. Role-Play Adventures.
You said no to me. I was going roll, and you went no, and then you just stole it from me.
First of all, screw you. This is the game.
listen.
Second of all, I thought there was a G.
This is toxic.
If you're trying to spell out roll, just roll. I guess don't do that shit.
Move on.
We're gonna have to fuzz that out.
Move on.
Role-Player Adventures is great. It takes like the world of role-player and makes it a lot better, in my opinion. You're using different dice that you're allocating toward different fighting monsters and special abilities.
Love Role-Player Adventures.
And one of my favorite things is that it's a very much branching story paths. So you're playing through 10 to 11 different scenarios. I think maybe 12 because of the finale one.
Yes. There's a side quest in the finale.
But you're playing through a book, and in the book, you have many choices, and sometimes different choices will lead you to having different titles, and then when you have other interactions, it'll say, if you have this title, this happens. If you have this title, this happens.
Cool.
And I think with how big the book is and how much we've seen, slight spoiler alert, there was one scenario that we did where there was a certain area that I was like, that does not sound good to me. I never want to go to that area. I don't think we should. And we were able to finish the entire scenario without ever going to that area.
Which feels so fascinating. understanding because like from a design choice, you're like, oh, it's an interactive story. This is clearly a place supposed to go, and it's like actually you could choose to not go there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a starfish and an ice slug that end up falling in love. It's delightful.
No, seriously. We found the
They
starfish
really
and the
do.
ice slug, and I'm trying to get them to destroy each other. Meg's like, but they're gonna fall in love, and like.
And then they go
game's-
near the fire, and it like protects the other one. It is just so charming.
They're either best friends or in love. Can't tell, but they clearly have a spark.
They're in love.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a bit like D&D reminiscent where you have your different attributes and you're paying into different attributes where we're both kind of bruisers where we go into like strength
Yes,
and
we did in this
dexterity.
case.
But you can pay into different things depending on what you enjoy when you're playing in games. And depending on what you pick, it will make you more powerful for different types of situations. So when you're presented with choices of should we break down the door or try to sneak in, we try to break down the door. And I think it takes the D&D genre, makes it a co-op campaign game that you can play without a dungeon master, and the lore of it and the world is just very, very delightful.
Very
It's
cool.
a great game.
It's a solid game. I'm impressed it made it to a top 10. I knew it was going to be higher for you than it was for me. I really
Yeah.
liked it. I had it like around 85 or something like that.
I
had
think
a
if
high,
it
but-
didn't surprise me so much, it wouldn't be as high. I didn't expect to love it the way I loved it. I thought we would like it. I thought we'd play through, have a great time. And surprise after surprise, we had a nightmare about someone, and then we end up playing an expansion that takes place 2,000 years ago, and it's the same person that was in our nightmare. It's crazy.
Oh,
But
you're
it's
talking
just
about that
so
one.
Called
wonderful.
Access Secret, yeah.
So wonderful.
It's a solid game. I really enjoyed it. What's your number 6? Are we up to 6 now?
Have we
Six,
done
yeah.
everyone's?
I think we've done everyone's 7.
I'm at number 6.
I am at...
I'm at 6.
Yep, I'm at
Your
6.
7 was Crokinole.
Yeah.
What's your 6?
My number 6 is potentially going to be a crossover, but we shall see.
I'll tell
Too
you.
many bones.
Let's find out.
Too
Go ahead.
many bones.
It's a ship theory.
Too
Too many bones?
Not too many bones.
Too many bones. It's not. Yours is higher.
That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We're messing up the order.
You guys still
It's
have
fine.
hope for one more.
I keep saying them all first before you
Okay,
guys.
it's all good.
Too Many Bones is absolutely delightful. So we've played Undertow, and
We
that's all that
played-
I've experienced
you and I
so
have
far.
played Undertow,
Yeah.
yes.
So all I've experienced so far is Undertow.
Stanza.
Stanzas, yes.
And then who did you
so
play?
My
I
go-to...
I assume you played Stanza.
With her, yes.
Yeah.
Generally, I prefer Duster.
Yeah, I was Duster with
Duster
The
and...
wolf.
Doug.
Oh, what? Oh my gosh, Duster and... How am I blanking on this? It's Stanza, Duster, and Nightshade.
Nightshade.
I was gonna say Shade in my head.
Nightshade.
Fine, take it from me.
Yeah, I really, really enjoy the game. I think one of my favorite things about it is, again, there's like narrative to it, and it's very cheeky. It's like funny fantasy, where it's not just like taking itself seriously and this happens and that happens. It's like, it's very silly, and it's like, I can't think of an example, but it's very, very silly. And they have a lot of humor written into it while still having a lot of like the fantasy elements that you know and love. And the tactical decisions in it, mixed with the dice upgrading and when you choose to use them and how and what you choose to upgrade. And on top of that, the production quality of it, that's absolutely insane with these neoprene mats that have like cutouts for your dice so you can track them all. And every character has custom dice that it's like an entire tray of dice that you're doing. It is so much fun. I love it.
I think to describe what you were saying about the writing, I think that Chip Theory Games is also very similar to Orange Nebula in terms of like their rule books and their world building that they do. It's self-aware, like it's a little bit fourth wall breaking. Like they are aware of the person playing the game, and they're snarky and like direct towards that
Snarky.
person.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And really, really clever writing, for sure. No,
Solid
I
game.
like it a lot.
Yeah.
Mine was 6. It's absolutely too many bones.
Direct crossover.
Mine was
Oh my
6 is too
gosh.
many bones. I held on.
You did.
It's
You
right there.
had me.
Mine was
This is
6.
okay. So that was one of the two that I think.
Yes, I know.
You
That's
could
one
have
of the
two then by the end of this.
There's one other that might be there, but I'm not certain. We'll see. But Too Many Bones is one of the ones I wondered if we'd cross over. I think it was my number 7 last year. It's my number 6 this year. It's bumped up a drop. Every time I play it, I'm just reminded how good it is. But it's always fighting with the newer games. And it's everything you said. I mean, every character is its own little game. It's like learning a new character, the intricacies of how that character is. They each have 16 dice, each representing unique skills and abilities that are their own puzzle of this engine that the game gives you of how to play, of this skirmish game, of this progressive adventure, and then every character is like, okay, great, but here's how you interact with this journey. Here's how you interact with the enemies. Here's the kinds of things you can do, and they're all vastly different. This isn't like skill buffs and changes. You do a little damage, I'm ranged attack. No, this person's crafting bombs and tossing them to the battle. That character has their own little wolf that's being able to use. This character has their little instrument that they're charging up the entire battlefield. It's the kind of intricacy you see in character development that you find in games like Gloomhaven, and it's such a degree of just... I haven't even played as all the characters. I haven't come close to it because I don't feel the need to. I constantly am finding myself attracted to the characters I've already played. I'm like, I want to play as Tantrum again. I want to play as Stanza again. I want to learn their systems and figure out more ways to combine their abilities.
Because there's different branching paths that you can do even within one character.
Yes, every character has different ways you can build them out, different stats you can adjust. It is a role-playing adventure of an experience that is just... I like Too Many Bones a lot.
And something I forgot to say, but now that it's yours, I can still keep going.
Yes, you could.
It's also not punishing when you don't roll what you want, which I think is very strong with a dice rolling game, is that it does still give you something to do, where in some games it's you fail, and with this one you fail forward. When
you miss, you assign them to a little bonus track, and every character has their own way that they cash in on misses, so sometimes you almost want the miss. You're like, one more miss and I can get this little perk. Yeah. It's a really solid system, but you still want to hit and kill the enemies because they are punishing. And every enemy has like little abilities in them, and it's just the puzzle of seeing the enemies on the table, seeing your characters, and trying to figure out how are we going to survive.
The grid that you're on is like a 4x4 map.
Yes.
So for how tactical it is, you are fighting in such a small map and still moving around the board. That's also crazy.
Yeah. It's a knife fight in an alley. Yeah. With
exactly what it is.
With
grenades, dogs,
arrows,
and loots. It's a weird fight in an alley is what it is.
My number 6 is a boomer bouncing grenade to the structure that Alex likes so much.
Isn't Boomer one of the Too Many Bones characters? I think that's the...
It is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, that's the grenade one. Yeah,
good job.
Come on.
Thanks for the help with the segue.
He just lobbed that in there.
She lobbed it. Yeah, it's my destruction to Alex's careful regimen that he abides by. And my number 6 is Dungeons and Dragons.
I was going to say, it's not a prototype.
My number 6 game of all time is Dungeons and Dragons. At me. Come at me. I will fight you and I do not care. Dungeons and Dragons, as a core and one of probably the most recognizable role-playing experience out there, is some of the most fun that I have. If you're talking about like narrative enjoyment of chip theory games, like the joy of crafting that and creating that, and also with like the group of friends. So we started in person in Texas, and then we're playing now with some other friends from Texas.
With 5E.
With 5E, with my wife and I, and we play usually on Tuesdays or every other Tuesday whenever, the schedule shifts.
I didn't know you play that often.
Yeah. We have an active Curse of Strahd and some other stuff going on within the Curse of Strahd campaign, but like we're actively playing, and it is so much fun. Like to like lose yourself in another character and like build a cohesive and community narrative that exists like outside of the game and something that everybody can refer to and enjoy and joke about, but also is such like a fun story. And like if it's done well, if you've got the right people there with you, if you've got the right DM, it can be such a memorable and transformative experience. I have an absolute blast with it every time I do it, and it just really reinforces to me the joy that I get out of role-playing games. And I see a very, very intense connection and ties to the reasons why I play board games, as to why I play RPGs, which is why I can, with absolutely no qualms, wreck the structure of a list like this. Yeah. There are cards that you can buy.
There are dice.
Yeah. So, you roll. You roll.
Damn it. I'm never gonna let that go.
So, Dungeons and Dragons is my number 6. I love it. Bring it on.
That's one that I would have crossed over in our top 10 if I broke the rules.
That's okay.
But I'm not a rule breaker.
What's your number 5?
Do you want to do your number 5?
You were such a rule breaker. That's such a lie.
I don't want to get in trouble.
I should do my 5?
Yeah.
Do your 5.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-oh. My number 5 is a game which we may be crossing over on again. I can't tell if you're pushing me towards it or not, but it's Inish. Really? 5? Ah!
These are the two that I thought we would... I thought it was going to jump.
I didn't think... I thought Inish was higher for you.
No.
Oh my gosh. My number 5, when you said you wanted to do number 5, I was like, okay. My number 5 is Inish.
These are the two that I thought we would do.
And I was
with
right.
too.
You got 2 crossovers.
And
Oh
I was
my gosh.
thinking, I don't know where Gloomhaven is for you now.
We'll
We're
find
gonna
out,
spoil
right?
it a little bit, but I thought we were gonna swap Gloomhaven and Terraforming Mars.
Who knows?
1 and
Well,
3.
no, because you've already done number 9.
What's the 9?
My number 9 was Terraforming Mars. I thought that was gonna be your Gloomhaven.
Oh, yeah.
and
gotcha.
No.
In
I think
another sense, we might be swapping.
Inish.
I think it's gonna be like Gloomhaven is 3 for him.
Yeah.
Gloomhaven is 1 for you. We'll see. This is all
Find out.
semantics.
We'll see.
Let's find out.
My number 5 is Inish. Inish is my favorite of the Matago trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever. It is the third one that came out, and I actually ignored it for a bit. I was like, I'll get to it eventually because I love the series, but like the art didn't pull me in at first, and the art actually does now. In fact, you both have the better box.
Why I got it.
It's such a good game of.
It's very Celtic-y looking.
We can do this together, honestly. Down 5, may as well.
Yeah, it's your joint 5.
It's our
You
joint
guys
5.
talk
We're gonna do
about
this together. It's got drafting, which is delightful.
Yes.
It has, and it's only got, like, the thing I love about it is it's drafting with 16 cards. And if that's what you're playing with at 4, you're playing with 16 different cards, and that's all there is. You have to just figure out, okay, great, you have these cards, I have these cards. These are the cards that are in play. Someone's going to be geisting me, stopping me from taking my action. There's going to be that invasion card that, lets you invade to multiple areas. There's going to be that migration lets you pull from multiple areas.
Druid.
Actually, the other way around. There's going to be Druid lets you pull
So
that
good.
card. Everyone knows the cards in play, and so you're just trying to figure out, okay, great, well, if I have 1 movement and 1 battle card and 1 card that will help me in combat, but someone's going to screw with me somewhere, and you know they're in play. There's 1 card that's out of play of
And
your
a
own.
big part of the choice in drafting too is that you might want to choose the best card for you, but then you're giving someone else something that you know is more powerful for them at the time. That
Yep.
you can't be handing them something, so then you have to make the choice of, do I go for what I need or for what I can't give them?
And it's another area control game. You win with the rule of 6s. You win with either having placement in 6 territories, or placement with 6 sanctuaries, or being chieftain over 6 enemy clans. And that dynamic of a constant different tug of wars of how you can win allows the players to try to sit there and think through playing keep away effectively. You're building up your own engine while playing keep away. Are you waiting for us to notice what you're doing right now?
No, I just know it's going to be you guys talking about Inish for a while.
Oh,
so I'm
you just keep
chilling.
sipping.
So good.
Yeah.
We can keep going honestly, but it's
Well, and another part of it is, oh my gosh, I just lost my brain.
epic tail cards.
Not the epic tail cards.
Different.
The battle system. When you're actually battling, it's a free-for-all of your units on the board, and you can also discard a card instead of losing a unit. And the back and forth of, because you can also stop the battle at any point, or the person that initiated it can stop.
At any point, you can offer a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Ceasefire.
So-
Not ceasefire.
The back and forth of, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you back. I'm going to hit you, but I'm going to discard a card to not. And then being like, well, do we want to stop? And then the other person being like, I'm not going to stop.
That's her every time.
Yeah.
It's a delightful game. It plays well at 2, 3, and 4 players. It plays well at 5 too. I've even played with the expansion. You can play it at 5. I've enjoyed it at 5. It slows down a little bit, but if you're playing with the right people, it's still an amazing experience. It's
There
a game
are epic
that
tail cards. Do you already say those?
yes, I believe you mentioned them. I didn't say what they are.
There are epic tail cards that you can get that also add like an extra degree of what you can do. So they're almost like a secret that you have on your side of the board. People know that you have it, and sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes they're not that helpful. That you can always like come in and surprise.
Yeah. One time I played a 5-player game where someone won in the first round. It's just like it's one of those games
the
that
first round?
in the first round. It just happened when I don't even remember.
Sanctuaries?
I think so.
Had to be safe.
You had enough players putting things down on the board and messing with stuff
Yeah.
that someone is able to sneak in and win.
Yeah.
It's one of those games that in our group, whenever we play it, we're always, at one point in the game, someone always says, it's never happened this way before. We always have that aspect of something about the game manages to surprise us despite being so concise
Well, when we
in the
played, we only had
components.
like 3 tiles out the whole time. which
And
was
I
crazy.
probably said it's never happened
Yeah.
that way before. It's
Yeah.
a regular, specifically with Inish, it's a mantra within our group, but we always feel somehow managed to be different despite how often we play it.
So good.
I
The other thing
kinda
about
like it.
Enish is when you think you're going to win, if you think you have control, if you think by the end of it you're going to be able to do it, you take this crown token. And once you take that, once you take that though, everyone knows, oh, they're going for it this round. And then they try to do everything that they can to stop you. So it's also very fun that you can try to have the win and then people like go right after you after your throat once you think you have it.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
Can we play right after that?
Yeah, absolutely. Devon, what's your number 5?
It's right there.
It's literally right there. You have the
right
cooler
there.
box. I want the cooler box. Go ahead.
You
Take
gave me the code.
That's
I
so
didn't know
funny
that.
because
I didn't know that.
I completely pub peopled this and I thought 5 and 6 would do that.
Wow.
Interesting. So those are the
That's
two I
impressive.
was hoping for. I was wondering. I debated. Yeah.
How much did you manual massage today, or like
Today.
today or last night?
Today I've made.
Did you change those two at all?
No, I've made no changes today.
So you guys have had those
Well,
two
it's
there
not
consistently
true.
for
It's
a
not
little
true.
bit.
My 1 and 2 I changed and changed back today. So I don't know if it counts as a change.
Nice.
Interesting.
My 1 and 2 I changed and changed back.
Okay.
I was like, no, I gotta. Like, they're that close for me. They're that close. But I'll explain why. There's one specific word as to why I changed them back.
I think I know what those two are.
And do you know what the word is? But do it later. Do it later. When we get to 1 and 2, I'll ask you again later.
It's gonna be a roll of the
The
dice.
expansion.
I hate you so much.
Number 5 for me is Star Wars Rebellion. I love 2-player experiences. I love sci-fi. I love Star Wars, and Star Wars Rebellion is it's so good. It's a long game, but it's not Twilight Imperium long. And you can play this game in 3 hours, 4 hours. It really depends on the 2 people you're playing with and how paralyzed they get by the progression of the game. And what I mean by that is, I was talking about in previous lists the asymmetry of 2 roles in which one thematically feels like it's supposed to be the strongest of the 2 and like overwhelming, and the other one feels like the underdog. But the way that they're allowed to manipulate their advantages makes each person equally scared of the other. And I felt that way in Dune War for Arrakis. Like you with the Harkonnen forces were terrifying. And then I could manipulate sandworms.
Yeah. But you also cheated.
Did I?
Yeah, the sandworms go after they attack. They go away.
That's fair. That's fair. And
Thank you for the commentary point to that, because otherwise you won.
Otherwise you won.
Bitter.
Star Wars Rebellion is so good. When you are the rebels, you're trying to hide your base in a full galaxy that the Empire is trying to hunt down. And as soon as they hunt it down, if they ever get physical forces on that planet, then you have to reveal that that's where it's at. And if you have any ground forces there, they're fighting. And so the thing that I think is brilliant, that also Dune War for Arrakis does a little bit, but also War of the Ring does a little bit, is this combination of actions that you want to do and people that you want to be involved with those actions. But the way that Star Wars Rebellion does it is that you have leaders that you assign to missions. And the most brutal aspect of this game is that the rebels go first, and they have to assign their leaders, and they have to assign all of them and decide whatever leaders you assign are doing that mission, and they're not really involved in moving forces around or initiating combat. So you have to decide however many missions you want to do, and then however much you want to set aside to enact movement and initiate combat. But the Empire, who gets all of the forces always, and is so much more of a physical presence on the board, they get to wait to assign their leaders later. And there are also ways in the game where you can manipulate the evenness of how much leaders you have. So there was one game where I was able to turn Princess Leia to the dark side, and so I took their leader, and I got Princess Leia. And then I had a 7 to 5 or 8 to 5 leader difference.
Wow.
And so my brother would be assigning people, and I would be like, okay, you've assigned 4 and you've got 1. I was like, well, I'm going to double oppose that one, oppose that one, oppose that one, oppose that one.
That's so rough.
And then I'll have these people and it was just the concept of having to determine whether you want a mission to be a feint. Maybe you'll put a really strong leader on a mission that they can't really block at all, or anything like that. Just, it's such a good, I love, kind of like you were talking about with Rurik. I love trying to decide my actions and knowing that it's going to have a grave effect on what the other person is doing, and also the whole time playing mind games. Yeah. It's so good. Star Wars Rebellion is amazing, and every time I get it to the table,
really tells a story. It really does.
It really does to me fit the Star Wars universe, the theme and what plays out in the game does really well. So Star Wars Rebellion, number 5 for me.
My number 4 is a game that I'm surprised beat out Inish. I am surprised. I'm very surprised it did, but
Am I going to be proud?
No.
Okay.
If
Am I going to be proud?
If anything,
No.
you'd be disappointed. It's Lost Ruins of Arnak, which I guess you ranked as 11. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Was 11 for you? It was high for you. I remember.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was the one I couldn't remember. I was
It
like,
was
I can't remember what else is there.
Lost Ruins of Arnak is my number 4, and I am
Why
surprised
would
it beat
I
out
be
Inish.
disappointed in that?
No, because it beat out Inish. That's why. It's it's a good game. It's Lost Ruins of Arnak is the
That
third.
is disappointing.
You see.
But we matched. But we did match, so it's okay.
I love that. That was so good. Lost Ruins of Arnak is the third of the series of Endless Winter, Dune Imperium, and Lost Winds of Arnak. Obviously, it's a series that only some people compare. Other people don't understand why anyone compares them. You're cool. You're special. It's all good. Lost Winds of Arnak. I don't. I just lost 4 subscribers.
You just lost me.
Lost Winds of Arnak. I don't love it.
You just lost me.
I don't love it when people when the whole space is like these games are all comparable and people are like actually I don't see why anyone would ever compare them. I understand you might not, but understand that other people do.
Okay. Talk about Lost Winds.
Lost Winds
It's
of Arnak.
okay.
Sorry, wait. You're higher than you normally are. Oh, sorry, there's a soapbox.
Get off your horse.
Yeah, no, I'm just getting the soapbox
I
out.
was going to say horse. Lost Winds of Arnak, I adore. I absolutely adore the game and the expansion. Last year, I think it was just outside my top 10 last year, if I recall, maybe 12 last year, and that was before I played the expansion. And the expansion only elevated
Expedition
more.
Leaders.
Expedition Leaders, and like you say, and a lot of people say that it feels like an expansion that should have been part of the core experience. Those asymmetric leaders that give you this additional puzzle as you figure it out. It's worker placement deck building with the most beautiful art, amazing components, and just multiple pathways as far as what you want to do and how you want to do it. Do you want to explore new locations? Do you want to build out your deck very heavily focused on that? What about maybe artifacts? Artifacts can be your into the game, or maybe that research track over there, which just will give you a ton of bonuses. But how high you go up the research track is going to be a part of the decision. Like how much do you want to focus it? A little bit for sure, but a lot. Do you need those assistants? Do you just want those points at the end of it? There's so many different things to do in the game as far as where you place your things, what you place, and every time you're gathering these like amazingly like just cool components that make you feel like you're exploring, like you're gathering, like you're building up an engine, and then those asymmetric leaders come in and give you your own little extra puzzle as far as what you're trying to do more. Do you want to mess up and lean into those like curse cards or whatnot? Do you want to try to just have an extra worker to place out, which sounds like it's game breaking, but the other players all have their own little thing as far as the little hawk that you send out. It's got such a puzzle of it's beautiful art, beautiful game, plays quickly, plays well at 2, 3, and 4 players. It's a delightful experience that I adore. It's my number 4 game of all time.
The Expedition Leaders definitely, like when we played that in person at your house, it definitely made the experience better than when not the in person versus online, but like you and I played online originally, and I was like, this is okay. And then we played the Expedition Leaders. I was like, I understand why this expansion is better and it elevates us. Like I like this a lot more with the expansion.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't say this, and I regretted it after when it was my number 11, so I'll take this opportunity to say it now. There's a co-op expansion coming out in 2023.
There is.
Dope.
Which will probably make it rank higher on my list.
I believe it has a bunch of things, but one of the things it does makes it co-op.
Yes, I believe 2 new leaders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cool.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited for that one as well. I am curious as to how co-op will mess with it. Also, good for you to know, and for I should really dive into at some point. There is a full solo campaign to go through as well. There's an app and a solo campaign, so there are ways to mess with that. Nice. That might give us a hint as far as what co-op is like. I don't know if it's the same or different, but yeah, I mean, just more ways to experience at a game that I absolutely adore.
4. Your guys' list, I want you guys to go back to back every time, because your guys is much more interesting in terms of crossovers.
We have no more crossovers. We have crossovers, but not direct crossovers.
Yeah. This one is not on either of your lists. This was my first board game I ever played.
Oh. Arkham Horror.
Arkham Horror.
Second edition?
Second edition. So, guys, I will be super clear when I say second edition, because sometimes people get confused. The current edition out is third edition. It's the second edition done by Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes. But
the first one was done by Chaosium in 1987. So this is the first iteration by Fantasy Flight Games. I think it came out in 2006. But it was my very first board game. And it is so much fun. It's a co-op experience where you are playing as different investigators, where gates are opening and you're fighting against different elder things, and there are monsters coming out at you, and you're also you're going location to location and going through location decks, and depending on what's happening, different things will happen to you, and you can become deputy. You can find Duke, who's a good boy. And it's such a great challenge of all of these gates opening and feeling overwhelmed and having to go through them, go through other worlds, experience what happens to you in the other worlds, and then coming back better for it and trying to find like different items and things you need, managing money. The expansions make it great where you're going up to an additional board. It is just such a great time. It's a table eater for sure. It is a long game. It is crunchy. There is a lot to it. I would not have it any other way.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, most people are like, third edition did a lot to like streamline and make things better. But there is a pretty passionate group of devotees that are like, no, second edition is the game.
I would say from the feedback I've seen, which is localized to Facebook or people commenting on it, I believe second edition is the one that seems to be preferred.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
So
gotcha.
what people will say, because it is out of print now, I'm sorry guys, you'll have a hard time getting your hands on it. If you can, it'll be expensive. But people suggest Eldritch Horror instead now.
Yeah.
Or if you want a similar experience, Arkham Horror, the card game.
Gotcha.
That's still like in print.
Well,
and
the
available.
opening the gates and dealing with like the elder ones, that I mean, I know that I have not played Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror second
Elder
edition. I played Elder Sign, and that sounds familiar, but Elder Sign is a shorter game experience, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's as involved.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to try second edition. It's the people who love it love it.
That's the one that when you guys come up to visit, I will have it set up and ready for us to go. It is such a great time, and it's very tricky and very hard, and you can lose. It's similar to something like Cthulhu Death May Die, where you're playing through the game and you don't always win. I want to say I have like a 60% win rate for it, so still not bad. But there's all different elder things that you can fight against. It's really great.
It's one of the first games I played when I got into the hobby. Like I played in 2012. I got into the hobby around 2011, and I remember playing a very long experience. Like this is fun. It's a little long. I definitely am curious to play it again.
Yeah, it is long, but if you have a lot of experienced players, you can get through it pretty quickly.
Nice. So it'll take a while with me.
Like 4 hours.
What's number 4?
Number 4 for me is the official Alien RPG from Free League Publishing.
RPG.
When he got Dungeons and Dragons, I thought he was going to do Alien RPG. Thought that was it.
I think Free League is one of the best, if not the best, RPG creator out there. Like as a publishing company, they just have so many hits. They've got Morkborg, they've got Blade Runner that just came out that is sitting right there. They've got The One Ring, which we are excited to jump into soon. Mm-hmm. So many titles, but the Alien for me is the thing that I love about that is that it has got a couple things that really make it shine for me. And number one is the split between a lot of RPGs are like, hey, this is a campaign experience. This is how you're supposed to do it. And most publishers of RPGs have at least tried to ease you into it by creating starter boxes where they'll do a little bit of stuff pre-made. But Alien is specific in the fact that it has campaign scenarios and then it's got cinematic scenarios. And what that is a full 3-act visually and narrative feast that you can do, and you have preset characters and stuff that you get, and they have these internal goals that they're going after, which are selfish in motive. And it really does, the times in which I have just done the first cinematic scenario with 2 different groups, it has created such a awesome experience, such an awesome narrative. It has been I don't want to spoil it, but Amber just killed it the first time that we did it. It was so much fun. And it really does. It literally feels like you are creating another Alien movie when you're going through it.
This is the one I want to play. And you mentioned it also has that element of a kind of leaning into the madness kind of concept.
Yes. So the thing that was the second element that I think is brilliant, and so it matches up with Cthulhu Death May Die. Cthulhu Death May Die. As you go up the insanity track, you're closer to death. In Alien, it's such a brilliant mechanism. It's called stress. And what happens is you have your base traits that you have, and you might be really good at strength, and then strength has 3 sub skills that you might be even more adept at. But in the game, as the terrors of space, the loss of sanity of your crewmates, visually seeing the aliens, all of these different elements create stress, and the more stress you get, you mark it up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for every single stress level you have, say you roll 6 dice for this one trait. If you have 4 stress, you roll 4 more dice, except they are stress dice, where the 1 is a little face hugger, and the 6 is still a success. And so you have the black dice of your skill and the yellow dice of your stress. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have the physical dice for them. You can use your own dice, but it's way cooler to use the official dice. And so when you do a roll, those yellow dice might actually help you succeed at the roll better. Mm-hmm. But if you ever get the 1s, you automatically have a panic attack. Now the panic attack, as you have lower stress levels, may only be hey, you flinch and you drop an item or something like that, or it may have a lower result and your action still scales through. But you can literally get to the point where it's you freeze and don't do anything for the next minute, or it could go all the way up to you literally go catatonic and you're dead, you can't function anymore. You have a life altering panic attack. And so the idea of increasing your chance at focusing, because it's like if you're stressed, like your adrenaline's pumping and you are like actually more focused on it, but you have a lot of fears ongoing, and it's kind of like that idea of, does the environmental factors and the stress of the situation overwhelm your focus and in need and intent to survive and do what you're trying to do. And that element alone adds so much into the narrative too, and then set in a world that is like highly corporate, highly toxic, and set in the scariness of space, which is already terrifying on its own, and then add, alien encounters to it.
I want to play this one.
Such a good RPG.
The last one you talked about, you sold me.
Such a good RPG experience.
Yeah.
That's my number 4.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is our crossover for the list with
Dune
Meg,
Imperium.
and it is Dune Imperium. And I love this game by itself. I love it with the Rise of Ix expansion. I assume I'm going to love it with the Immortality expansion. Dune Imperium does, and I like this for a lot of reasons. And I did a video back in the day where I compared it to Twilight Imperium.
Yeah.
And Twilight Imperium has a system where you are getting points through objectives. And you are getting a small amount of points. It's like 1st to 10. And you get public objectives where you have 1 and 2 point objectives that you're going after, and then you have private objectives that you're aiming for. And Dune Imperium functions the same way. And counter to games like Endless Winter, Lost Ruins of Arnak, and so many other titles that we've talked about over this list, I love games where what you're aiming for is a small number, because every time you climb it, it's tangible. Like if I'm playing Endless Winter and you score 13 points in the middle of the game for your animals, and you score 10 points based off of your area control, and I score 5 points based off of the investment I've had on my board, those are somewhat like not anchored. Like I don't know what that means until the end of the game when you get in-game scoring and we all scale up so many levels. I don't know what that means. In Dune Imperium, if you get a point and I don't, I know what that means, and that hurts, and that hurts so bad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, she got one ahead of me.
Every point
How
matters.
am I
Huge.
going to get ahead of this? And when I have that level of tension and like emotional investment in a single point, and there's only 10 of them that you're aiming for before the game's over, I love that experience so much.
And then there's the alliances where you have the point swing.
Yeah.
2 point
What I was
shift.
gonna say
huge.
is, you because of how it does it with the political aspect of it, which
Yeah.
I think plays into it so well, is you're not only gaining that 1 point, but you can actually take points away from other people, which isn't something that happens often in games.
Yeah. So like thematically, I love Dune Imperium because I also love the movie that has come out. I've recently read the first book, which kind of goes over a lot of that, and I love it even more. I love sci-fi. It's got worker placement. It's got deck building, and to me, there are some games where there are design elements of it, or places where I'm like, chaff is not the right word, but it's like it's a little bit of bloat or a little bit of like aspects where you don't have to have it, or it's not core. Everything in Dune Imperium feels essential to me.
Yeah.
The influence track that you're going up, the conflict, because you might have someone that goes fully conflict and they are a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you had dreadnoughts with the Rise of Ix expansion every time, and halfway through the game, Alex and I were like, oh, okay, we're just never winning a combat again. Cool. But like you recently told me about playing the Rise of Ix expansion where you won and you didn't go up the influence track at all, which is like crazy for me to think about.
So cool. The
like,
Rise of Ix to me, I mentioned this already when I covered it. I think I was the lowest at like 13 maybe. The Rise of Expansion really sold it for me. Just really pushed it over the edge, brought it down from like 80 to like 13 for me. It's such a good game, and it adds just the extra scoop we need. And I'm so excited to try Immortality. I want to see what that adds to the game. It's an amazing experience.
Dune Imperium it's so good. It's so good, and I anticipate that it'll be in my top 10 for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not my top 10. I anticipate it'll be in your top 10 for a long time. I was about to say, me too. The top 15 have a lot of games that I want to be my top 10.
Yeah. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is the game that Meg thought she was going to be proud of me for number 4, which is Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is my number 3 game of all time. I'm like 90 hours of gameplay into this, possibly more if you count Frosthaven 2.
And where was it last year? Was it even?
No, it wasn't my top 100 at all.
Yeah.
At all.
That's why I'm proud.
It's a game that when it first came out, I kind of didn't pay attention to that much. Before, as a content creator, I took the stance of like super popular stuff. I kind of waited a year or so. Eventually, like a year after like the hype was still there, I got it and I tried it. I played it for like 2 or 3 games. And I was like, this is a really cool system. I'll get to it later. And then the problem is there's so much setup in it. There's so much investment. It's an 80-page rule book. There's a lot of things going on that's like later stretched out and stretched out and stretched out. And then one day I found Jaws of the Lion. And I did play Jaws of the Lion. I dove into that. Never finished it. I got like 7 missions into it. I was like, yes, this is why I like this, and this is why I still have Gloomhaven, but I still never finished it. I still enjoyed it, but not top 100. It was just a good game. Mm-hmm. And then finally, you and I started playing Gloomhaven on Twitch, and Twitch? Yes, Twitch. Yes. I'm like blanking Steam, but on Twitch, we're streaming it. And that to me, and this is where I know you and I disagree on it, it's to me the accessibility of the digital aspect, taking away all that stuff of like setting up and tearing down the next scenario, definitely pushed it over the edge for me. That the gameplay of Gloomhaven I think is incredible. That dungeon crawler skirmish game in which you have the top half of one card, the bottom half of another card. You have characters that feel so different in the way that they play. Again, even though there's so much of stats, at the end of the day, the abilities they have, the way they play, the way those abilities mesh with together, the extra movement, the extra range, the extra effect, or the poison that combines with this, or the wound that. Everything about the system is so creative and so clever across the different characters that you play, and the tightness of how well every scenario is designed. Like, every scenario is beatable. They're all beatable. But they're often hard. They're often a challenge, and it works so well, just giving you that dungeon crawler, the variability, the strategic challenge, the cooperative feel, plays well at different player counts. You can solo it as well. If you want 2-hand characters, there's also solo scenarios. It is a fantastic experience that, I mean, again, like, it is currently, at this point, it is my most played amount of hours that I have put into any game system that I own. Still not number one.
I think it's also maybe the only instance I'm aware of in which the digital presence of a game has facilitated your love for it over like a physical game.
The digital visual aspects, because when you play on Steam, there are additional visual enhancements that are nice. That to me balanced out across playing it on a table would still win. For me, it's the fact that when I'm done...
The accessibility of it, I think.
When I lose online, when I lose playing it digital, I'm like, okay, reset, on again. Yeah. When I lose in person, it's like, okay, now I spend like 17 minutes resetting things to get to where we are.
It does not take that long to reset a scenario.
Okay.
To reset a scenario?
Let's see you do it, Holmes.
We did with Frosthaven.
I did it with Frosthaven.
All right, dog.
It took 17 minutes.
I don't think it did.
She's like, that's because it was you. I think to me, for sure, switching scenarios is a lot of extra stuff. It means I have to sit there and say, am I signing up for another 15 to 20 minutes of tear down and setup one step to the next? And that to me, it's still an amazing game and it's still worth it. But it is that extra level that takes away from just how much I want to play it compared to...
I don't even necessarily think it's build up and tear down. I think there are so many things in game that... Like simply when you're like, oh, I leveled up, let me swap out a card. Like, no, even
that
online.
Part I love. I don't care about that. That part I love. In person, I love it too. I'm not gonna. That part I don't mind. To me, it's the literal resorting of the cards, the resorting of the setting up the decks, putting back the enemy decks, choosing the new enemies, putting out the tiles, grabbing the new tiles, grabbing from the token trays the specific scenario tokens that you need, putting away the old ones so that's organizable.
Your facial reaction.
I'm gonna time you the next time.
I'm holding my tongue.
I am timing you. The next time we're gonna have an update pinned comment here.
No,
the next time you go from
she's gonna have her moment to talk about this in not too long.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk.
And this doesn't count when you do your pre-setup thing, because she does this thing where she'll set up like 4 snares in a row, and she'll be like, "Okay, great, I have it all ready to go." You put the work in before. That's good, but it's still the work.
Have you done your 3 yet? Have you done what's your third?
My number 3.
She's like, it's Dune Imperium, it's Gloomhaven, and it's...
I'm so delighted about this. My number 3 game, again, we did Pub Meeple. It was, would I rather play this or that? I am so obsessed with this game. I don't care. It's my number 3, Dice Miner. I love Dice Miner so much. Dice Miner is a very simple game where you have a mountain, the deluxe version or the Kickstarter version.
Is it the one where it's like the dice slide?
And all of the dice have different things printed on them that will help you score. You have regular dice that are 1 through 5, and then the 6th side is a beer. And then there's treasure, there's meteors, dragons. There's dragons, you have shields, you have treasure chests, you have pickaxes, and you have magic. And you are drafting all of them out of this mountain. And it's just 3 rounds of drafting off of the mountain. I love the solo game. It's very different and kind of changes it up. I love drafting, and just with the dice, I don't know why. I am so obsessed with this game. I don't care. It's my number 3. I love it so much. I'm like obsessed with it that I think about it all the time.
Nice.
Dice Miner's so good, you guys. It's so good.
I didn't even make the connection, but like prior to you talking about it just a couple days ago, you have like you're like, guys, let's play Dice Miner. Let's play Dice Miner. Let's play Dice Miner. And I didn't even think about that, but it's like you ask about that a lot.
I can pull it out on my desk. And I will play it like in between things when I'm taking breaks or whatever. I love playing the solo mode because it is very different. I'm just gonna go for it. In Dice Miner, you're drafting these numbered size dice, and for you to score for it, you need a set. So it goes 1 through 5, and in the regular game, you need a 1 underneath it to etc. So if you have a 1 and a 2, you'll get 3 points. If you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll get
10 points.
Thank you.
I
didn't do that quickly.
10 points.
So
I didn't realize you can test it. I wasn't prepared. I was like, no.
You can have a full set of 1 through 5,
happening.
and then a 1 and a 2, and then 1 through 4, and you just score for those at the end of the round. The solo version, you can only take a 2 if you have a 1 already to put above it. And you can only go sequentially that you can't take a 4 or a 5 until you have the 3, and then you can do 4 and then 5. And it is such a trickier puzzle. It is a lot of luck based. It is die that just come out on the mountain, but it's so quick and easy to reset.
Unlike Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven's fine. Gloomhaven's maybe a minute longer than Dice Miner to reset.
I'm timing you. Next time we play Frosthaven, go scenarios, I'm timing you.
Yeah, my number 3 game is Dice Miner. I'm in love with it. If I could marry it, I would.
My number 2 is... I'm so lost track in this. My number 2, and this is the one that number 2 and 1, and you're both gonna know what they are at this point, but don't say it. Don't spoil it for them. But this is the one I went back and forth on.
Dice Miner.
I initially had it one way, and then I swapped it back this morning, and I swapped it back again. I am very, very close on 1 and 2. There's a reason why 1 wins out. We'll get to that soon. Mm-hmm. But number 2 is Cthulhu Death May Die. Mm. Cthulhu Death May Die, I love. I think it was like 8 or 9 last year, maybe 7. It was, I think Too Many Bones was 7. It was high last year, but it's bumped up even further to my number 2. And I think it was already there even before playing Fear of the Unknown. But Fear of the Unknown...
In my head, I guess you've talked about one that I thought you hadn't talked about yet.
Because you think it's another game that I should have.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it after. We'll get to that soon. Cthulhu May Die is... The Fear of the Unknown even further cemented that it should be here, but I think it would have been at number 2 either way. But it's such an experience of just going insane and leveling up, which I just cannot get over how enjoyable that system is, especially when you combine with the fact that every character has their own unique way that it empowers them. Like the fact that you talked about this alien RPG and the stresses, and it sounds very cool. Yeah. I don't think it'll compare to Cthulhu May Die for me, because in Cthulhu May Die, each character is unique, so the benefits of going insane, the puzzle is always different character to character. It's not just like this concept of, ooh, it's a good system. It's a good system extrapolated onto your own individual powers and abilities system every single time you play. It's a dungeon crawler that's cool, scenario based, but the scenario adds even more variability. So you have one scenario versus one Elder God. So you can play Cthulhu in episode 1, you can play Cthulhu in episode 3, you can play the other names, Hastur in Love episode 2. You can choose which episode to pair up with which Elder God, with which investigators. Once you have the expansions, with which additional monsters. Then once you have Fear of the Unknown, the one that's not yet available, you'll have which additional monsters to have, which additional relics to have, creating a unique puzzle every single time you play, a unique combination of elements in a dungeon crawler that is just so satisfying. And the thing that I love about it, past that going insane thing, is the ramp up. The fact that every single game of Cthulhu May Die has a ramp up. You are getting more powerful, but the enemies are too. That Elder one gets in your face, and then you kill it, and then it comes back, and it's stronger. And the pacing of how fast the Elder one accelerates means every single game, I'm not sure who's winning and who's losing until you get to that end game. It is always, you talked about this, it is always a story. It is always a moment of shared collaboration of, we made it, we did this, or we died horribly. Either one works for me. And even when you do make it, very often one or more characters have died along the way, further adding to that sense of, we just did it, we just managed to make it. You sacrificed yourself. I sacrificed myself because I wanted to feel involved.
For fun.
It's such a good experience every single time. I adore Cthulhu May Die. Fun fact, it is CMON's highest rated game on Board Game Geek. Blood Rage and some others are highest ranked about it because they have more ratings, but in terms of pure rating, Cthulhu May Die is CMON's highest rated game on Board Game Geek. It's number 2. It's awesome.
It's a good choice.
Have you done your number 2?
No. Have you done yours?
I'm not.
What's yours, Devon?
My
Crokinole.
Number 2
Crokinole.
is Crokinole. This game is so good. I don't have the distinction. I mean, I love 4-player Crokinole.
You guys said you have one crossover. I never even remember Crokinole.
She's like, why would that be on anyone's top game? Top 100. She's like, games that are out of print, yes. Games that haven't been printed, yes, absolutely.
But have you heard of Dice Miner, though?
Sure. Dice Miner, absolutely. Crokinole?
Crokinole for me, I love it at 2-player because I love that head-to-head competition. I love it at 4-player because it completely changes the spatial element of how you're playing, and it gets more people around the table, more people involved. I love the game no matter what the player count is, because even if you have more than whatever your player count is, even if you have more than 2 or more than 4, you can just switch out every single round. So like it's not a game where it's you're committing, I'm going to play for the next 60 minutes and then you can play. You can just keep subbing people out. It's what I would call like a beer and pretzels game in terms that like it's so casual. You can talk over it. You can be as intense about it as you want or as goofy as you want. The advent of a new board style that Jeremy has been working on is called a 5-hole, and in the outer cycle it has 4 extra holes that are actually red shaped instead of the black one in the center, and instead of getting you 20 points in the center.
Red shaped?
Sorry, red colored, red shaded. It's red shaped. You know, whatever sounds more intelligent, that's what I said. So it has 4 holes in the 10 circle one, and so in the original,
That's interesting.
They're negative points. You can say it like that. They're negative.
They're negative points. So in 2-player and 4-player regular, you really want usually more of like a clean board. You're trying to get your opponents off, but in the 5-hole board, you actually want your opponent's discs to stay on, because rather than them getting 0 points, you want them to get negative 10 points, which is really that way to counteract if people are getting 20s.
Do they stay in the hole?
No, they come out just like the other ones, but you just instead of counting them as 20s, you count them as negative 10s. So it shifts up the scoring, it shifts up this way that you play the game, and it just makes like 4-hole, because the fun thing about the 5-hole board is when you're playing with people, it also is much more open to people who are at different skill levels, because you can luck your way into getting stuff into the 10 holes because there's 4 extra holes around the table that stuff could get into rather than that central 20 hole. But I love it. I want that board as well. I have a Tracy board for my regular. I want to get a 5-hole one. And I will choose to, if anybody wants to play Crokinole, I will play it all the time. And it's to me that, like you said, I could play it for, let's just play one game, and 2.5 hours later you're playing more games. And I love Crokinole so much. I think it's fantastic. I have a Tracy Crokinole board. I think that's... I've played on other ones. I've played on your old one. I've played on a couple people's other... I don't like them as much. It's kind of... It ruins it a little bit for you in terms of like...
I said this to Jeremy Tracy when he was over last. I said to him, I've said about Crokinole in general. It's a great game. Get a $100 board if you don't want to spend too much. And I know 100 is still a lot.
Yeah.
But it's still enjoyable. You'll still love it. The one caveat is, as soon as you play on a more expensive board, that $100 board is not going to do it for you.
How much are the more expensive boards?
The Tracy boards are
Tracy's
$350 Canadian.
It's $300 and $325 Canadian, depending on which one you get. Mine is the Grey Rock, which is $325, but you can get them for $300 if you just get the normal ones. You can also, at different conventions like PAX Unplugged, Jeremy Tracy and his family, they're very much perfectionists at the boards that they're making. They make like the tournament ones, and so you can get what are called seconds, which sometimes have noticeable blemishes, sometimes do not have noticeable blemishes, but it's just ones that like they see the imperfections and they're like, we can't sell that as a perfect one. Yeah. So you can get them for cheaper if you get them usually in person or ask after seconds, but they're amazing. And for me, it's like I know that the price is high, but I can go to most games in my collection, and I don't really... it's a game I love, but I don't really think of it as like an heirloom item, like something that I was like, oh, in 50 years, it could be in the exact same shape that it is right now, and I think that is, like if I keep it in good shape, that's something that I could give to my son when he's like 20 years older, and he's like, oh, I want one. I'm like, you can have this one. This can be your board that you get to take with you, so... And also, I would say, you were saying Gloomhaven is now your most played game hours-wise. That's another reason is I sometimes think about price in terms of the amount of hours I put into it and whether, like, the investment is there. And I've played Crokinole a lot. So it doesn't... to me, it's been worth the money.
Yeah. It's a great game.
Yeah. So, Crokinole's my number 2.
Nice.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is an absolute delight of a game.
I don't know what it is.
I've described, well, I'll say this and you probably will. This is the only game that I've asked you guys this question before, that if you could, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, forget an entire experience, if you could wipe it from your brain.
Clank Legacy.
I knew it. I was waiting.
If I could wipe this from my brain and replay it through again, I would actually choose to do that. Despite how much fun I had doing it, it's something that I want the experience again, and I'm trying to find a game that can do this, that can give me the same experience. So if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. Clank Legacy by Acquisitions Incorporated. Clank itself as a game is very enjoyable. I love it a lot. The Legacy version and what it takes you through and the way the story is written. Again, it's a Legacy game that's very cheeky. It's funny. It's very silly. It does break the fourth wall and it talks to you as the players, but it also has really impactful things that happen to you and your party, and each scenario is so fun, and it's a pure Legacy game, not just campaign, but it is Legacy. You got stickers, and you are even adding stickers to the rule book. You're adding stickers to the board. It's a double-sided board, so you're playing in like the above ground and then down in the caves, and when you're playing with it, you are customizing the board. That sometimes you'll get stickers that will add portals places, and you choose where it goes. You choose what types of locations it is, whether it's one that heals you or gives you coins or things like that. You're using markers and you're naming things. You have a main player board or main like team board where you're adding different abilities that affect you every scenario, that you gain them throughout the game. It is so much fun. I had an absolute blast. It's a thing that I did, I want to say in 10 days we played the entire thing. I could not stop playing Clank. I had to keep going.
It's only 10 missions, right?
10-ish.
10-ish. Uh-oh. Never mind.
10-ish.
Because I remember playing through part of it. And
Yeah.
10-ish. 10-ish.
Yes.
Cool.
10-ish. But yeah, it is base Clank rules, so it doesn't change too much as far as actual gameplay, but there are different objectives, so even sometimes when you're trying to beat a scenario, you have to do certain things certain ways, and it adds all new elements. Some of the elements are now in Clank Catacombs, like ghosts and things like that, but the experience of building through the game and opening different envelopes and finding things out, gaining roles, having things change on you, and then at the end, at the end things happen depending on how well you did in certain things, and it's just really, really fun that especially the cheekiness of it for Acquisitions Incorporated. You're all playing as like employees for Acquisitions Incorporated, so that's what you're going through, is like at the end of it you're evaluated as an employee and how well that you did, like that's serving hilarious. The business. It's just so good. It's so good, and
it sounds like a ton of fun. Every time you've talked about it, it's made me more interested in it.
It was honestly probably one of my best gaming experiences. And I'm losing my brain now. What was I gonna say? Oh, at the end, so you're customizing these boards. At the end, you have a fully playable game. So you have like a playable board that you've created yourself that you can now play Clank with going forward. And not even just that, but there are cards that you're adjusting. You guys know classic deck building, how you start with a certain 10 cards.
Yeah.
Even those 10 cards within your different roles that you choose within the company, your starting decks are a little bit different. That they're not those base 10 cards. Yeah. And you're using stickers and markers that you're changing them all, that by the end of it, you have your own custom Clank that no one else in the world can have.
That's cool. Wait, so you can play the game afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you're just not playing through stories anymore, and there's not anything that will like add stickers or change things, but you're playing with the final board that you've created.
Cool. That's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You both know my number one, right? Without saying it yet.
Yes.
We both know her number one.
It's a crossover.
Which is also a crossover. I know your number one. Do you know his number one?
I know that you know it.
I know it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to guess it.
So let's start with you.
You're going to say it and I'm going to be like, oh.
Okay. My number one game of all time is Out of Print. It is a Warhammer license, and it is my favorite Fantasy Flight title to have ever existed. It is designed by Corey Knizia and Samuel Bailey, and I think maybe one others.
Ironically, it was created to replace another Out of Print game.
It was created to replace a StarCraft game. And my favorite game of all time is one that I actually just got an unofficial fan-made expansion for, printed in Poland along with another group of people on BGG. It is Forbidden Stars. Forbidden Stars is so good in every conceivable way. Yes, it is a bear of a game to teach. It is a long game. I will say that to me, it is one of the best examples of asymmetric gameplay in the industry. And I know it's an older one. When people, hype up the elements of Root, it just like grinds my gears because I'm thinking of Forbidden Stars and how good that is. And I would say that contrary to Root, I think that Forbidden Stars plays well at 2, 3, and 4. It's such a good experience. It's so brutal. It has got one of the coolest ways of resolving combat in mini games that I've played. It's got custom decks for each faction that you have 2 copies of, and so your deck is always 5 different types of cards with 2 iterations each. And when you go, you shuffle it up, you draw 5 of them, but there are 3 different levels of combat cards to upgrade, and however you change it is going to completely determine the strategy of style that you play. You're going to have like 3 tiered combats, 3 different rounds. You can end a combat with no one being fully out of it, but then you win through morale, which is something, you have dice that have attack, defense, morale on them. Factions may lean more heavily into one or the other, and you have the Ultramarines or the Space Marines, and then you have the Chaos Space Marines, the Eldar, and then the Orcs, and those are your 4 base factions. In the expansion that I have over there off to the side, that has 4 additional factions there. It's my favorite game of all time. I've put so much time into it. I've put money into it in terms of like protecting it and upgrading it because it is an out-of-print title, and it's so good. I think one of the best elements of it is not only the combination of the combat, but also order placement. So the order placement is hidden order placement. You have tokens. Everybody has got the same 8 tokens. You're going to be placing 4 of them, and you place them on sectors, but you can place them on sectors where you are or sectors where you're adjacent to, which means I could put 3 tiles down, and I have to stack them one on top of the other. And then if another opponent is adjacent to or on that spot, they could, after I've put 3 tokens down, cover it up. And you resolve it top to bottom.
Dirty.
So that when you're playing, you are planning in reverse order. You're planning what you want to resolve pretty much last, and then, ending with what you want to play first if you're stacking anything on top of each other. But you could have...
very much reminds me of the Rurik system of order.
It's so good.
I think, to me, this will be a top 100 game for me. I think the only reason it's not is I've played partial games of it multiple times.
Yeah.
I've never actually played a full game.
If you guys were open to it,
Right
I would
after
say
this?
literally screw every other game we've mentioned about playing, and I would teach you guys that game today. Like, I would happily do it, and it would make my entire week with you guys here is being able to play that game in full. I love that game so much. It is so good, and I think that both of you, the types of games that you like, the things that you like about the games that have area control, hidden worker placement, deck building, it's so good. It is so good. And there's no points
the best.
involved. It is objectives, but different from Dune Imperium and Twilight Imperium. Those are point objectives based off of what you do. And this is objective scoring where you have objectives placed in different sectors. And you have to physically go get them and end your turn in sectors where they are on that planet where it is. And it's just, it is a vicious game. It is so mean. It is so beautiful. I love Forbidden Stars so much. It's the #1 game of all time. And it in the space of a year, I taught you, and we played through a fourth of a game. And then I taught Max and Kyle at Origins and taught that we played a full game. And for a while, I was at this worry where I was like, do I have high opinions of it because I haven't played it in so long? Has it faded? And it's not really what I remembered it was. And I played it, and I was like, this is the best game ever. I don't care. I've played so many games since, and it's still the best game.
To me, the 2 things that are incredible, you mentioned this, the order resolution is just brutal. The decision and gameplay, knowing that at any time I can place an order and you can cover it, really messes with the mind think of the game. And then the combat system, those 10 cards, it's only 10 cards, but you're also building your deck, so you're upgrading. You have to figure out what am I willing to take out and how will that affect combat resolution. Those 2 things are combined.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
Calm down.
Keep talking.
There's no dice here. Calm down. Anyways, my number one is, well, you both know this one. It's a game I went back and forth with my number 2 versus my number 1. It's Terraforming Mars. It was my number 1 last year. It almost lost to Cthulhu because Cthulhu has been continuously delivering an incredible experience. The reason number 1 made it to number 1 is
solo?
drafting.
Oh.
Drafting, I cannot get over the fact that both of these games are incredible games. But Terraforming Mars, at the end of the day, the thing that does it for me is the drafting gives me those moments of just competitiveness as I look at my hand of cards, as I try to think through what I'm going to play into my tableau. You're building an engine. The whole game is about building that engine. You are terraforming Mars. You're trying to be mindful of the different criteria that go towards terraforming Mars, and you're working your way towards them while building up your own tableau. And every single card you pull and draft is... And you haven't even played with drafting. I'm curious to see what you're...
Yeah.
And Prelude.
I haven't done with drafting either. I've done Prelude, though. But because when I was playing online...
I will say screw it to every single plan we have. If we can play Terraforming Mars... Oh, you don't have it. Oh. I say I would do Terraforming Mars
do the digital.
No, I hate you.
Should we buy it for Devon for Christmas?
One thing at a time. But,
One thing at a time.
if we can just abandon
Is he
all
buying it
plans,
for me for Christmas, or is he buying it for him to be able to play?
Terraforming Mars, the tableau building in that game is so rewarding, and the drafting as you try to think through which cards will work for you, and your stomach is your eyes are always bigger than your stomach in this game. You always think you can build towards things, and you can't, and you buy cards, you keep cards you should not be keeping. That money, because it costs money to keep a card, and it's so tense. And Prelude, not only does Prelude shorten the game, which the one downside of drafting is it can take a little long, but Prelude not only shortens the game, but it shortens it while giving you even more compelling starting bonuses. You're like, I'm going to start the game with this, and that's like, it is...
The asymmetric starting positions from Prelude, I think, I would not want to play without it.
And the variety of corporations you have. It's the only thing about Terraforming Mars that in any way is a letdown to me is I find most of the expansions don't enhance the experience enough relative to the game time and complexity that they add. But the overall package of Terraforming Mars plus Prelude plus maybe some other expansions is the best gaming experience I consistently have again and again and again.
And again.
And again. And I think it's fitting to end with your number one.
I was going to say, because it's number one on BGG.
Because it's
the
number
best
one on
game
BGG.
there is, you guys.
For now.
My number one is Gloomhaven. And for me, in things changed, Clank Legacy surprised me, but for the longest time my favorite game was Arkham Horror, and I got Gloomhaven in 2018 before I was doing content creation, before I was really on BGG or looking at things like that. So even with the hype that it has, I was playing it before I knew how cool it was.
You're such a Gloom hipster.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
Such a Gloomhaven hipster.
It was just like a really fun dungeon crawler that I was really into, and one of the things that I love about Gloomhaven, because there are many, and just to put it out there, I've played through an entire Gloomhaven campaign. I've played through all of Jaws of the Lion. I've started a campaign now with you that I think we're maybe about 40%.
40, yeah.
I'd say about 40% through. And I've started 2 different Frosthaven campaigns. And one of the
I
things
see you're
for
bundling
me...
Frosthaven with Gloomhaven for now.
Yeah, I'm not really mentioning...
Yeah, I mean, it's
not even bundling.
We've both
really.
played it.
Just saying what I've played, but not speaking
Well, I find
to that experience, really.
sometimes a game genre, like I don't know what's going to happen with me and Zombicides next year. Between the 3 different Zombicides, I don't know if I'm going to bundle them or separate them.
I do bundle Jaws of the Lion with Gloomhaven.
Yeah. I think it depends on the game. Some are comparable enough that I'm just going to compare the 2, and others I'm going to be like, no, you get 2 spots in my top 100.
Yeah. But for me, one of the things that is so special that if you have to spend enough time with Gloomhaven to get to this point, but there's a whole retirement mechanic where you have these goals, these personal goals that you're working toward throughout the story, and once you hit it, you hit it. There's no choice. Even if you're loving a character, if you feel comfortable with a character, no matter what level that character is at, you have to retire it and get a new class. And you can play the same class again. Most people choose not to, but you have to start a whole new class, whether it's one that you unlocked, a previous unlocked one, or one of the base starting ones. And there are different points throughout playing Gloomhaven that it made me realize, it started making me feel like D&D and like we were building a story. But you're going through a pre-written story where you have different choices and different arcs, but you're still playing through what's already determined. And you also are forced through this retirement mechanic that for me, multiple times I was reminded, I'm not playing through my own story, I am playing through the story of Gloomhaven. This is the experience that you are meant to have always played. And something like that is just so delightful for me that at first it hurt, and when there's a game that hurts you and you didn't want the thing to happen and it doesn't feel good, but then you can't put the game down and you still keep playing.
Last of Us.
Yeah, it was punishing, but in a way that I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't leave. I didn't like what happened. I didn't like my class after my first class, and I still pushed through it because I loved the game so much, and I feel like it almost made me unlock parts of my brain as a player that I didn't know I had. Like, I tend to play certain ways, you guys know, very much melee, very much combat, and it kind of made me... Fighting?
You like that?
What?
Where's the sword? Pass the sword.
Give me that sword.
Pass the sword. She's talking about Gloomhaven. She deserves a sword.
You can edge with me holding a weapon. That's pretty funny.
At least I'm not next to her this time.
But the way it forces you to play through different types of classes in ways that you are not comfortable, and then when you finally get it and learn how it makes sense, I feel like it makes you evolve as a player, that not many games can do that can make you smarter and quicker and better and think different ways for playing that I then, used in other games that I play as well, that now sometimes I will play different types of things that I didn't before because now I understand it. So, thank you, Gloomhaven. You've literally made me a better player in so many ways. It's just so delightful. And so that's like overall part of it. The card play in it and the action selection and the fact that you're exhausting is tied to losing these cards, and that every time you rest and you need to pull your cards back, you're losing one, and you're either choosing through long resting or it's forced to you through short resting. Figuring out which cards you need for which scenarios and what you need to make it through. It is kind of Cthulhu Death May Die-ish, where sometimes at the end of the scenario, you're not sure you're going to make it, and depending literally on those choices that you make, even between long resting and short resting, can make the difference. That it's a dungeon crawler, but it's such a puzzle that you just, I feel like it makes you a thinkier player as you're going through it. There's
And with that, we end our top 100 games of all time, at least for 2022. It's been a long list.
It's been a long list.
But these are all
So good.
these are all very,
We have
very...
so many to play
We
now.
have so many games to play. We're never going to be done here. We're never going to be done. But that's been the list. There are 9 other videos you can go ahead and go through. There's a bunch of other top 22 content or a whole bunch of other things to go through. We'll be back next year, maybe, possibly, with our 2023
as
top
long as
100.
I don't stab them before then.
That seems like a relevant factor. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
On a sentimental note, I'd rather not be done with you guys, so it's okay.
Aww.
That was sweet. Thank you. And you're?
I'm Devon.
Cool.
Thank you guys for watching.
See you guys.
Thanks for sticking with us through this. And until next time, I hope you have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.